Hey everyone, welcome to Hungry Coder. In this first Python video, we are going to be learning about the data types in Python. Now, my objective of this Python course is not just to get you guys to learn the syntax of Python, but also we are going to be leading into videos where we're going to start building out our portfolios. We will start building a few applications, a few scripts, and we're really going to bulk out your guys' portfolios so that you can get job ready. And yeah, as the videos go on, we will use the things we've learned in the previous videos to put them into action. But I feel like I need to do these beginner videos first so that we've got something to relate back to. And of course, if you have suggestions or you're struggling with anything or you don't understand something, do leave a comment below. I myself will try and get back to you, or I'm sure somebody else will within the videos as well. So yeah, welcome. So this first lesson is going to be Python data types. Now you may think, or you already know why you're learning Python, or you're still not sure. Well, if you are a beginner to programming, or even if you are good with another language, Python is always going to be an amazing programming language to learn. Reasons for that is it is easy to learn with a simple yet comprehensive syntax. It's great for beginners, still powerful enough to power applications built by or for companies like Google, NASA, Mozilla, Microsoft, etc., etc. And one of the reasons it's quite fun and easy to learn is it has similarities to written English, which we will see in later videos as we start digging into more complex kind of flows and stuff like that. So yeah, primitive data types, which is what we're going to cover in this first lesson, would be things such as numbers, strings, and Booleans. We're going to dig into them in a lot more detail in a moment. Those are the three that we're going to be learning in this video. In later videos, we can expect to learn more advanced and collection data types, such as lists, tuples, and dictionaries. But yeah, just to bear in mind for now. So that's the introduction really. So let's head on over to our development environment and yeah, start digging deeper and getting started. Okay, so here we are. We are in the development environment. I am using Visual Studio Code as my development environment, and I have Python 3.8.6 installed at the moment. If you don't have Python or a development environment installed, I will share some direct links in the video description for you, so you can quickly install those. If you have any problems with that, yeah, leave a message in the comment section, or there's loads of resources on how to install Python on your machine. You don't have to use Visual Studio Code. There's loads of different development environments. They all have their own little quirks, but they all achieve the same thing at the end of the day. Anyway, so before we begin, I want you guys to open up a notepad, or if you have a pen and paper, that's absolutely fine. And I want you to write down these 4 questions. What is an integer? And I want you to write down what is a float. Also, what is a string? And what is a Boolean? And the reason we're going to write these down now is because at the end of this video, I want you to go back to this notepad or back to your pen and paper and be able to answer these questions, which means you've had a successful lesson and you've learnt your first thing about Python, which is the basic data types. Okay, great. So we can put that aside for now and let's get into it. So Python has integers and floats. Integers are simply whole numbers like 300 that we can write down there, and a float would be something like 300.50. Okay, so the difference here is the decimal place. An integer is a whole number, like I said, and a float would be a fractional number or something with a decimal place. So let's have a look at how these come out. So if we use a print function, we can print 3. Print is going to print it to our console, and it's going to output. This is how our program outputs values. And we can also print a float, which would be, let's say, 3.5. Control S to save on Visual Studio Code. And we're going to want to, if you don't have a terminal open yet, just go to the top terminal and click New Terminal, and it will pop up down here. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to run this program now. So this would be our first program, printing 3 and 3.5. So Python, this file is called datatypes.py, so we'd simply type Python and then the name of the file, datatypes.py, and press enter. And to the console we get 3 and 3.5. Very straightforward, very basic. Now, how does Python actually view these two values? Let's have a look. We can use another method inside our print function, which is type. So remember we said data types. This is a method to find out the data type of a particular value of an object. Okay, so we've wrapped, so initially we wrapped 3 and 3.5 in a print statement, and now we've put type and the number in parentheses as well. So Control S to save, and let's print that to the console. So we can press up on your keyboard to get your last written statement within your terminal and press enter. So it's told us that we've got a class integer and a class float. Again, an integer in Python is a whole number, and a float is something with a decimal number or a fractional number. That isn't a whole number basically. So great. So let's leave a comment. Comments do separate a good programmer from a bad one, especially in my experience as a back-end software engineer. So a comment starts with a hashtag, and we can write down here numbers, including integer and float, so that if somebody else came back to this program, they could very quickly see that, oh, these two numbers are just identifying an integer and a float. Great. So what else can we do with numbers in Python? Because they do get used a lot. You don't have to be a mathematician in Python, but it is good to know some basic mathematics. I myself, I am not a mathematician by no means. However, to get better at Python, I did do a few basic math courses just to help me in, remembering how to work out averages and things like that. But some of you will be fine. So what if we done 3 plus 3 in Python? What would you expect to see down here if we run it? Now, remember how we got these to show on the terminal? So I've done Control S to save it. Let's run it and see what we get. So all we're seeing is those data types that we previously did. And if you spotted why, that's great. And that's because we didn't print to the console. So we want to print 3 plus 3. Now we should expect to see 6. So Python just done maths for us. Very basic at this point, but you can get extremely complex. You can get some very complex mathematical kind of equations going. But we don't need to worry about that now. Now let's do some more. What other operators are there? So we could do print 3 minus 3. We could do print 3. Let's do 6 divided by 3. And what else do we have? Well, of course, we have the modulus as well, which is a special operator that returns the remainder after an integer division. So let's give that a go. So print, let's do 10 modulus, which is done with a percentage sign, 3. Oh, 3. Okay. So let's have a look. So let's Control S, save, and let's print those to the terminal. So we got 3 plus 3, 6, great. 3 minus 3, 0, great. We got 6 divided by 3, which gave us 2.0, which is interesting. And then we've got 10 modulus 3. So quickly to speak about the modulus, what the modulus does is it returns the remainder. Now, 10 modulus 3. So if you go 3, 6, 9, we now have a remainder of 1, and that's what we got down here. Okay, and we've seen that we divided 6 by 3, and we expect to see just the number 2, because if we put in a type here, just to see what does Python see here. Let's Control S and let's print that. It tells us that it's turned it into a float. So our integer got changed into a float. It's good to know that this can happen because you may have a function in the future or something that relies on integer numbers and whole numbers, and they can get converted. So it's good to bear that in mind, and this is why it's good to know the basic data types before moving forward. Okay, so I hope that helps in terms of understanding what integras and floats are, how to identify the type, and if we want to see it in the console, we can simply use a print statement, and also, yeah, leave comments wherever you can. It's a good habit to get into. So moving on to our next data type, which is strings, and strings are used quite often in Python. Strings are just a string of characters, which could be anything you type on the keyboard, could be letters, numbers, backslashes. Python recognizes single and double quotes as the same thing. So let's have a look at how we would use strings. First, let's identify what Python sees, like we did with numbers. So let's put single quotes, hungry coda. So this is a string, this is text, these are characters. Let's print that to the console first. So we will do Python data types.py, and we can see that we printed our word, our two words, hungry coda, to the console. Let's see what Python sees by adding a type. In parentheses, Control S save. Let's see what we get. Class str, which is string. So Python recognizes this data type as a string, which could be anything within single quotes or double quotes. Okay, so let's look at an example when we would use strings. So we may want to store a first and second name. So let's create a variable where we're going to store our first name. So first underscore name equals single quotes hungry coda. Oh, let's just do hungry. Control S save, and then we want a last name. And let's do double quotes to show you, but just a quick one. If we're using single quotes up here, we should pretty much use single quotes throughout all of our program, just for consistency reasons, but just for the purpose of this, so I can show you that single and double quotes do work. It's more down to preference, really. Control S save. Okay, if we call that to the console, what do you expect to see? Nothing, because we haven't printed these yet. So let's do that. Let's print first name. Okay, so we don't need to write the first name in. It's stored in our variable here, which is basically a tag, or kind of a key to this value sort of thing. So let's print, and then let's call it to our terminal, and we can see we've got our first name, which is hungry, which is great. Now let's print last name. Control S save. Hungry coda. But what if we wanted them to be next to each other? What could we do then? So let's remove these print statements, and let's do print first name and last name. Control S to save. Let's run it in our console down here, and we can see we've got hungry coda. Now we don't have a space in between those, and naturally we're going to want a space in between these because a first and a last name will usually have a space between. There's two things we could, well, there's a few things we could do. We could add a space at the end of hungry, which is fine, but it could cause a problem in the future of our program because a first name doesn't usually have a space in it, and we may want to just use the first name for something. So let's remove that space. So we could do, this is how we join strings together, and we can make sentences. So let's keep it straightforward for now. So we've got first name and last name down here, which we knew printed out hungry coda, them together, but we didn't have the space, and we don't want to put a space in the main variable value just because a first name doesn't usually have a space in it. So what we could do is after our first plus sign, we could call a string by doing single quotes and do a space. Control S, save. Oh, one moment. You always have to make sure that you've got your plus signs in between each kind of kind of data inside there, and then we're going to run that, and we can see that we've now printed hungry coda with a space because we added a space inside an empty string, you could call it. So let's do that, but with more inside it to get used to it. So follow along with me if you can. So we are going to want to print, so single quotes, hi there, my first name is, and then we're going to leave a space, plus, and then we can put the variable name, what we've got up here stored, because we may have multiple users that all have different names, but we're going to want to call the one in this instance. So first name, so we've called the variable, plus single quotes, so hi there, my first name is hungry. We know that there's not a space at the end here, so we might have to put that in ourselves, so we put a space, or we could put a full stop and then a space, and my second name is space, plus, then we can put last underscore name, plus, and then we're going to put brackets again, not brackets, quotes, and we know that coda does not have a space at the end, so we are going to, well, we're going to put a period because that's what we're going to, that's where we're going to end the sentence anyway. So let's see what we get down here when we print that. Hi there, my first name is, and it's got hungry, and we've put that there, so if you can kind of match that up. And my second name is coda, and you've got my second name is, there's our variable there. We've had to put our full stop, but remember to join strings we always need to put our plus signs. Coda, great. There is other ways of doing it, but this is a way that I enjoy doing it when I used to, when I first got into Python a few years ago, and yeah, it's an effective way, and you're probably calling it quite a few times. Now, what if we added something to that as well, which was my age, and we put 28. Control S save. Now that's an integer, so let's just double check that again, just to make sure we're getting used to it. My underscore age. So again, we've done the print type my age. Let's see what Python says that is. It says that's an integer. Now, can we join that as a string? Well, let's find out. So let's print single quotes. Hi there, my name is space, add our variable first underscore name, quotes, space, plus last name, plus single quotes to open up a new string, and we're going to do a space because we know that last name doesn't have a space after it, and my age is space, plus sign, and we can put the variable that we stored our age in up here, my underscore age. And then we can, that will end on 22, then we can do another plus, open up a string, and put a full stop. Control S to save. So what do we expect this to see, to print to the console? Hi there, my name is hungry, space, coda, space, and my age is space, my age, which is stored up here. So as we saw in the last time, when we called on these variables within joining our strings, we saw hungry and coda. This time it might work, or we may get an error. Let's have a look. Okay, so we've been given an error here, and it's actually not the one I expected. It's because I forgot to add a plus sign. So there you go. So add a plus sign. Let's rerun that. Okay, perfect. So here we are. So it tells us here, can only join string, not integer. So remember data types again. We've got our integer here and we've got our strings here. And what about when we want to join them together? Well, we can use this little trick here, which is quite fast. I do use it quite a lot. There is other ways of doing it now, but this is a good way to learn. So string str and wrap it in brackets, and this will convert my age into a string, because we could have done my age as this, but we may want to just put it as a number as well, because we may want to do a function that goes through integers or something like that in future, and it's a value. So what we did was we got that error here. We can't join string. We can't join integers. We can only join strings, and we've put str. Let's run it. Hi there. My name is Hungry Coder, and my age is 28. So we converted a integer into a string. So it's important, again, to know your data types, especially when facing errors like that. It can just be very useful to know, okay, great, this is the data type, this is that data type, what do I expect to have in there? Great. Now, a quick introduction to string methods. I'll introduce you to two now. So, a string method is a built-in function with Python where we can very quickly manipulate a string to do what we need it to do. So let's go back up to our first name and last name and make those all lowercase. Now, we may want to have a version of our first name that is all uppercase. So we'd create a variable called first name upper, and that equals first name up there. So it equals Hungry. That's what we're saying. But we're going to add a string method on. So we're going to do dot and then type in upper parentheses. As we learn about functions in future, we'll see why and when we need to use parentheses, but on functions generally we do. So we do that and do Control S, save, and then we can print first underscore name underscore upper, and let's run it. And then we've got that text up there that we called here because we called that variable, and we added a string method on dot upper, and we stored it in first name upper, this variable, and we can print it, and it took that string and it converted it into uppercase text. And the opposite way would be dot lower, which I'm sure you understand what that's going to do. So let's just change those to lower. There we go, and it keeps it as well. We kept it as the same thing. So let's just go up here just to demonstrate it. We'll convert it. It's good for you to practice this as well, getting used to the program. And it converted that upper text into lower text, so we can very quickly do things that we need it to do by using methods. But yeah, that's strings. There's a lot more you can do with strings, but learning these things first is great. And I would say, as kind of a project for yourself to do kind of now or after the video, is create around between 5 and 10 variables of maybe things like first name, last name, your age, your favorite color, your favorite movie, and put it into a nice long sentence together. If you come up against any problems, that's great. It means you're going to learn, but try and put together a paragraph's worth of a sentence with containing information and joining your strings together. Great. Okay, so here we are. We have our next data type, which is Booleans. This is our final data type we're learning in this lesson. So a Boolean value is simply a true or false value. You can use it to check if a value is equal or greater than or less than another value. So ways that we do that. Well, let's first put some variables in with some values. So let's say we had an application, or let's say a game that stored player score, or as an integer as 100, and we had the computer score as an integer as 50. Now we want to be able to check who won this game. So we have a player score and a computer score variables which are storing integer values as 150. Now what we're going to want to do is use Arrhythmic Operators. Now let's have a look at what these are. So equals equals would mean does it equals. It's not just equals. We use just equals sign once for storing variables. So you could say it's a reserved kind of keyword really, or symbol. So we use equals equals. So player 1 player score equals equals computer score. Control S, save. Let's print that. Let's see what it gives us. Control S, save. Let's run that in our terminal. Python data types.py run. False. So with Boolean values, we achieve them by using these arrhythmic operators. So let's use some more. So this one, let's leave a comment. Equals. Could put a question mark there because you are asking if this value equals that value. So let's move on to the next one. So let's print it as well. So let's print player underscore score. Let's do greater than, which is this symbol here. It's good to remember them. You'll probably remember them pretty quickly. Computer underscore score. Do a comment first. Greater than question mark. It's good to understand, to kind of get into that really helped me when I was learning it, the question marks, because it just helps you understand it just helped me understand I'm asking Python to give me an answer to this, which would be true or false. So we are asking, is player 1 score greater than computer score? So we're going to print it. So Control S to save. Let's run that, and we expect it to say true, and it says true. So now we know that the player score is higher than the computer score. There may be other things that we're going to do within the program, so it's very useful. But let's check out some more arrhythmic operators we can use for this. So let's print player score. Let's see if it's less than the computer score. Leave a comment. Less than question mark. So it's just the opposite way. That's greater than and that's less than. So let's Control S to save, and let's print that. And what do we expect to see? Player score is more than computer score, so we should see the opposite of true, which would be false, and we see false. Great. So we found out that the computer score is higher by doing less than as well. There is others. So we have let's print player score. So is player score greater than or equal to computer score? Equal or let's do it in the right direction. Greater or equal. So by combining these two, we have done a greater than and an equal. You can use one equal sign here because this is now kind of a different function in itself. But let's see. So we would expect to see true again. True. And it would be the opposite way for less than. So we can change the greater than to less than, just as you'd have them up here. Pretty straightforward. So is it less or equal? And it should say false. False. Great. Now we have the equals one at the top here, but what if we want to check that it does not equal? So let's remove these and focus on this for a moment. So let's save it. So after you've removed, save it, print, let's clean up the terminal. So we just get false, so it does not equal. So what if we want it to display true? We can put a exclamation mark and then equals. Control S to save, run, and it says true because it does not equal computer score. And that's really it really for Booleans. It's just there to help us identify true or false values, from which, based on the output, we can then maybe calling other functions or other parts of our program or script to come into play. So I hope you find that useful. So you should be able to kind of answer that question. Now, remember we done that notepad or your pen and paper where we put down what is an integer, what is a float, what is a string, and what is a Boolean. Yeah, you should be able to answer these now. If you don't, then go back through the video, do some more of your own research. But as long as you can answer these 4 questions, then you understand the 4 data types that are within Python. I sort of touched on what we can do with those data types, but we're going to go into them in a lot more value in future videos. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next lesson.